What if the biggest trap in your life is one you can't even see? From the moment we're born, we're trained to chase approval, to be good, to be liked, to do what makes others proud. Parents, teachers, friends, even strangers. Slowly, their opinions become more important than our own. And without realizing it, we start living like actors in someone else's story. But here's the truth. That voice in your head that's always asking, "Am I good enough?" That voice was planted there. This section opens with a powerful realization. The need to be approved is not natural. It was taught. And it's this need that quietly controls your choices, your relationships, and even how you see yourself. We'll look at how this behavior goes back to ancient times, when being accepted by the tribe meant survival. But today it's become a silent trap, one that keeps you small, quiet, and afraid of being yourself. And then comes the twist. What if everything you want, freedom, peace, real connection, only comes when you stop asking for permission to be yourself? This is the moment the cage begins to crack. Have you ever stopped to wonder, who am I without the opinions of others? In this part, we explore how most people build their identity like a mirror, reflecting what others think, instead of who they really are. We pretend, we perform. We become the version of ourselves we think others will accept, and somewhere along the way, we forget what's real. This section reveals how trying to please others changes how we talk, how we act, and even what we believe. We stop being ourselves and start becoming what we think people want us to be. We'll talk about how this leads to anxiety, burnout, and a deep feeling that something is missing. Psychology calls it imposter syndrome. Spiritually, it's a loss of soul. But then comes the question that turns everything upside down. If you've been performing your whole life, who is the real you underneath the mask? This moment doesn't just challenge how we see ourselves. It cracks the mirror we've been trapped in. There comes a moment when something inside you snaps. You stop playing the game. You stop pretending. You stop chasing the approval that never really mattered. This is the beginning of your real power. This part takes us into the heart of the transformation, the moment you say no, not in anger, but in truth. We'll share stories of people throughout history who broke free from approval. Socrates, Buddha, Jesus. Not because they wanted to rebel, but because they had to be honest with themselves. And when they did, the world called them crazy, dangerous, or arrogant. But here's the secret. Their power didn't come from being loved. It came from being real. We'll explore how walking away from approval can feel lonely at first. You might lose relationships, you might be misunderstood, but that's only because you're finally leaving the crowd and walking your own path. Spiritually, this is called dying before you die. It's the death of the false self. And on the other side of that death is freedom. This is where the shift begins, not with applause, but with silence. Once you stop chasing approval, something strange happens. The noise inside your head, the worry, the pressure, the fear of judgment starts to fade. The need to be liked, gone. The need to explain yourself, fading. And in that space, something peaceful starts to grow. This section explores what it feels like to finally stop living for the outside world. We'll look at teachings from mystics, like Ramana Maharshi, and ancient wisdom from the Tao Te Ching, lessons about simply being without needing anything from anyone. When you no longer live for attention, you begin to live from truth. This part will paint a picture of that experience using story and metaphor. It's like becoming the wind, quiet, invisible, but full of power. You no longer ask, "Do they like me?" Instead, you move through life with calm clarity and confidence. You're no longer reacting to life. You're responding from your core. And for the first time, you hear something deeper than approval, your own voice. Here's the part no one tells you. When you stop needing approval, people start giving it to you anyway. It's a paradox, but it's real. When you stand in your truth, people notice. Not because you're trying to impress them, but because you're not. In this section, we talk about what really makes someone magnetic. It's not looks, it's not charm, it's presence. We'll look at the work of Carl Jung, who said the path to becoming whole is to stop pretending, and we'll explain how people are drawn to those who are fully themselves, because deep down, everyone wants that same freedom. We'll also include stories of leaders, artists, and mystics who never begged for approval, but the world couldn't look away. This is where you realize something powerful. When you no longer need to be liked, you become someone people respect. When you stop trying to belong, you become unforgettable. The message is simple but life-changing. You don't need to chase the world. The world will find you when you become yourself. Now we pull back the curtain. Approval isn't real. Not really. It's just a shifting opinion in someone else's mind, based on their fears, their upbringing, their story. In this section, we break down the final illusion, the idea that someone else can give your life meaning. We'll bring in ancient teachings from non-duality and Advaita Vedanta, spiritual truths that say you are already whole. You don't need to be liked. You don't need to be chosen. You don't need to be enough because you already are. The moment you stop chasing approval, the illusion crumbles. And when it does, you're left with something far greater than acceptance, freedom. This part ends with a truth that echoes. You were never meant to ask for permission to be yourself. You were meant to remember who you already are. We end not with an answer, but with a question. What would happen if you stopped performing, stopped pretending, and just were? What would your life look like if you never again tried to fit in? This final part is an invitation, a moment of stillness, a space to reflect. We'll bring in poetic wisdom from Rumi, Lao Tzu, and the ancient Upanishads, words that speak not to your mind but to your soul. Because in the end, this isn't about rejecting the world, it's about returning to yourself. The truth is simple. The world doesn't need another mask. It needs your naked soul. This is the moment everything changes. What if the thing you've been chasing your whole life, being liked, accepted, approved, was the very thing keeping you trapped? From the moment we're born, we're taught to please others. As kids, we learn to act a certain way to make parents proud. In school, we follow rules to fit in. On social media, we post what we think people want to see. Little by little, we become experts at being liked. But we forget who we really are. This section uncovers how approval becomes an invisible cage. We explore how society, family, and culture shape us to crave being accepted, and how that craving slowly takes over our choices, our personality, and even our dreams. You'll begin to see just how deeply approval-seeking runs, and how it hides in places you never expected. The goal here is to shine a light on what's been holding you back without you even realizing it. Imagine this. No one's watching. No one's judging. No one's there to clap or criticize. Who are you now? This section dives deep into a powerful question. How much of you is actually you? We talk about the mask we all wear, the version of us we show to the world, and how it's often built to win approval, not to express truth. We look at how much of your identity is shaped by other people's opinions. Would you dress the same, speak the same, or chase the same goals if no one was watching? Would your life look the same? This is where things get uncomfortable, but in the best way. You'll start to feel the split between your true self and the version of you that's trying to fit in. And that awareness, it's where everything begins to change. Here's where it all starts to shift. When you stop trying to be liked, when you really let go, something strange begins to happen. First, it feels scary. You may feel lost, alone, or even rejected. But underneath that fear, something powerful is waking up. This section tells the deeper story of what happens when people stop chasing approval. We share examples from ancient mystics, spiritual seekers, and real-world stories, people who were misunderstood, cast out, or even forgotten, but who found deep inner peace and freedom in the process. You'll discover that approval isn't just something we want, it's something we depend on. and letting go of that need feels like losing part of yourself. But what's really happening? Here's you're finally coming home to your true self. Once you stop living for approval, you discover something you've never felt before: inner power. This power doesn't come from status, looks, or other people's praise. It comes from knowing who you are and being okay with that, even if no one claps, even if people walk away. In this section, we explore what it means to live from your own truth. You stop explaining yourself. You stop apologizing for who you are. You learn to trust your inner voice more than the crowd. We look at how real self-respect is born, not from being loud, but from standing firm. Not from being perfect, but from being honest. We talk about how your energy changes when you're no longer trying to prove anything.